Hello YouTube, it's computer update time. Coming up in October is the end of support for Windows 10, and right here is my custom built gaming computer I did at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. And it's an ASUS motherboard, ASUS Hero, and pretty good high-end spec gaming components, maybe not the most extreme stuff, but is a Republic of Gamers board, and then just the best components I could find at the time for it, and it's lasted here all the way up to, over 10 years later, so it was worth the money. I run Rhino CAD on this and some other CAD systems, Blender for video editing, a lot of photographs, trying to think what else here, just book writing, other kinds of activities on the computer, and a couple flight simulators too. So I'm not pushing the limits of the hardware at all, really, compared to some of these real high-end gaming machines that people do. But it's almost like an Apple product where it just will last a long time when you buy the better electronics and you avoid like getting a box computer from Walmart. But yeah, with the end of service for Windows 10, I checked and I tried to update right away, and it gave me an error that said that this computer is not compatible with the processor is not compatible. And I checked I cross-checked the available processors for Windows 11 that they would accept compared to what this motherboard would accept. Unfortunately, ASUS still has like support for this board even like a decade later on. And I was not able to find any matches because that was my first go. I was like, just get a new processor for it, update to Windows 11 because this thing's been trucking along just fine and probably go for another, 5-10 years easy. But anyway, I couldn't find anything, so I ended up ordering components for a new computer. I'm gonna keep the case and keep the what do you call it, the Blu-ray burner up top, and then some of the hard drives will stay, but then I'm going to transport basically most of the guts to another case that's similar to this, but it's not. It's a all tan with no window on the side, but it's the same basic chassis, and then all the new stuff will go in here. I'll start going over the individual components that I picked out and why, but yeah, I'm sticking with ASUS. I think this is my 5th or 6th build with their product line, and the second one for the Republic of Gamers stuff, which I have to say it's beyond the packaging. I think the hardware is definitely a cut above, general consumer electronics. There's other stuff. I'm also sticking with Corsair on the power supply up there, so I have a bigger power supply for this new one. And I think this guy's an i5 Intel, and I'm going to i9 on the new one, but I'll go over the details on those. But this is just going to show, like, if you're in this situation too, where you have a custom built PC, or you know how to upgrade parts on a PC, and end of Windows 10 service is coming up, like, what do you do? Well, first thing is I'd probably react around now. This is April of 2025, and this thing comes up in October, so that's like 6 months away, right? But the trick is we got tariffs, we got supply chain stuff. We still have all these problems coming up. And there's probably going to be a panic buy for computer stuff. I'm predicting in the summer and fall. So just trying to stay ahead of that, and I advise you to do the same. And as I'm showing you all these things, I have a description in the video below that will tell you about where you can buy these various parts. I got them all on Amazon, and it's been a good or bad experience. I mean, I was able to find everything right there, but last go around I went with Tiger Direct, which is no longer in business, and they had a physical store near where I used to live. But this go around, everything's through Amazon, so things like RAM comes right away. The motherboard and the graphics card had to come from faraway distances, and it took I'm thinking like 2 weeks in total just to get all the parts together. A lot of separate orders or shipments, even though it was all in one order. So we'll start going through some of the parts here, next part. All right, here's all the parts that came here. So I have a Corsair power supply. It's a HX Z690-E has modular plugs on it, so you only use the plugs you you need to have in there. See there, so it's basically upsized version of the one I previously had. This is a PCI card that has a series of USB plugs in the back. I have a lot of USB hardware. Kingston is my go-to for solid state drives. I've been using these for years in different sizes, so this will be my new C drive. And then here's the main thing right here. So this is the ASUS Republic of Gamers Strix Z690-E with the high-powered Wi-Fi. So this this motherboard's been out there for a few years now, and the price has come down a little bit. Time of this viewing is like $340 for this motherboard. The main drive for this particular one, beyond being a ASUS fan and liking their stuff, particularly with the Intel on the processors, is this one still has 6 SATAs right here for these kind of things, or like a Blu-ray or any of those kind of external things. So it has a lot of them, whereas most of these other motherboards, even ones that are higher price point, only have like 4. And then there's a newer technology since I've been in this building computers thing called M.2, which is right here. And then there's a card that comes out, and it's another style of SSD that's basically just a raw chip that plugs right into the board. And this thing, it's something like 500 gigabytes a second or something. I forget the exact numbers, megabytes a second. But yeah, it's around that. And then the M.2 technology allows you to go multiple times faster than that. You can definitely look up those specs if you want to on the internet of what these things can produce. But basically that's the benefit, is higher speed. So if you have something that you're needing access faster, game, CAD file, whatever, you put it in this M.2. Next thing is another ASUS product, which is, I think, yeah, ASUS and NVIDIA. This is the video card, and it's a 30660, 12 gigabytes of memory, PCI 4.0, and the big reason for this one is it has multi-monitor out and pretty good reviews. Again, all this stuff had good reviews on Amazon. Hopefully everything will be compatible here, but ASUS does have a pretty good compatibility chart, so when you figure out which motherboard you want, you can figure out which exact supported processors and RAM. So the RAM I had to go back and forth with a little bit, but finally found this stuff, which is another Corsair product, and that's DDR5, so it's not compatible. If you have DDR4, it's a different configuration right here, and they are not compatible with each other. And this is basically going to 64 gigabytes of RAM from 16, so that's like a 4x increase. So that's pretty good. And then this is a multi-core i9 processor. It's a i9 1290KF with the LGA 1700 interface right there with the processor. And then right now I'm going with this cooler fan right here for the processor. Liquid cooling is popular. This one did get good reviews. So this is like a CCHP heat pipe style thing with a fan, but it's not like a little tiny cooler like the one before. This thing is basically the size of this box right here. So it's like a 5-inch fan, very huge. I hope it fits everything in this my current case, because I do not want to get a new case, because that one's really nice and they don't make ones quite like that anymore. They make ones that look like aquariums or wood furniture, so not quite my cup of tea. And then the last thing is the thermal compound. So this is basically all the stuff you're seeing right here. This came out to about $1,500 in that price range, plus or minus a little bit. About 2 weeks to get everything here. So these are the parts. Part of the problems too is just the political instability, supply chain, tariffs, all this other shenanigans. I saw the prices on this stuff go up and down with every news report. So I found a low spot in where things were and just bit the bullet and did the stuff. And then there's things like particularly NVIDIA in Taiwan. That's a very congested part of the world right there with politics with China and other stuff. So the news could swing one way or the other, and then you'd be like, you go from, yeah, this is the normal price on this video card and you can get it in a week, to no, you'll never get it, or here it's going to be 5 times more money. You know, that's the kind of shenanigans we're dealing with, plus the Windows end of service. So I'd recommend act early, not late. These are all the parts. So that was a big one. The Intel stuff, I'm not quite sure where the plant is for these guys. I'd have to look that up. A lot of this stuff does come from Taiwan. Of course, it is a Chinese motherboard, but this, it's hard to find anything that's not. Shoot, this iPhone I'm shooting this on is from Foxtron in China. It's a shame everything has to be that way, but yeah, these are all the parts. And I could do like a breakout on each one talking about it, but I just want to show you what I got. And again, some of these items, like this motherboard's been out for a few years, so at least it's something that they didn't say, oh, this is horrible, let's pull it from the market. So this has been out there for a while. And again, these all have good reviews. So if you're trying to, any part of this that you like, just check the video description below. And I got an ASUS, or what do you call it? YouTube, not YouTube. Let me say the right thing here. Amazon link where you can get these. There's other places to check out too. I guess Micro Center is another one. And they do have, Micro Center has physical stores, so that's another option for you if you can just go in and get all the stuff that way. That's another way to do it. Tiger Direct is no more. It's been absorbed into something else, which is a shame because that's who I used to go to for this stuff. But yeah, there's an overview of the parts. Getting into the breakdown of the old ASUS motherboard in preparation of putting the new one in. Some items, like these generic SATA power right there, you can basically pull those, and hopefully you're technically savvy enough to know what that is. But then there's other things that are particular to the motherboard plugin. So if the idea is you want to, you know, transfer all this stuff over, maybe use the old motherboard someday or whatever, you know, if it has some value and you want to fire it up again, it helps to label some of these weird things. So like this right here, right above the processor, right there, I definitely throw a label on it somehow to what it is, some of these unique connectors. Now I know the main ATX power connector is something like that wide and 2 rows high, so that's kind of obvious. Some things are only going to plug in one way, but some of these others you're going to want to make a note of. An idea here for what I'm doing is take the motherboard out, video card out, these cards, and this guy. I'm going to keep most of the hard drives. I'll put a new hard drive in for the operating system and maintain this Blu-ray burner up there. I'm trying to keep this thing as intact as I can because the thing still works. And I got the other case that's like old tan, but it's an Anchor case just like this. So just trying to have something where, you know, computer could be fired up when needed. Here's the ATX connector, the main power thing. I forget how many, quite a few things wide and 2 rows high. But the Corsairs with the power, they got these little clips on here. So be very careful as you pull it out. Don't just yoink it. You got to pull it back, kind of like a car connector. That one was self-evident to me to where it goes and what it does. I know it well enough. But this thing, I don't know what it does. I mean, I'd look it up or whatever, but drew a little picture of an ATX board and a set of points, you know, right there roughly. And the same thing there has a little clip on it to maintain it or keep it from coming out. So trying to do delicate work here because this thing still works good. It's just the damn Windows 10 end of service thing. Could always turn into a Linux machine or something like that, something different. But yeah, just trying to keep this this thing going somehow. This is one of those main reasons I wanted to maintain this old Anchor case. Is it has these little modules that pop out, and right here you can hold up to like 6 SSD drives right in here. There's other ways to manage things, but I've always liked this setup. Like you put your drives in there, and of course it's on a little spacer to go from the 3.5-inch drive to a 2.5-inch SSD drive, SATA drive. But anyway, it allows 6 of them to go in there. You pull this thing out and you can put even more right here in this other one. This is my fan controller. So those plug in right here. It's a real nice setup, and then it's almost like a this thing's pretty much like, it's called a full tower. And it's still relevant today. Knock on wood, we'll see how this build goes, but it has, room for lots of hard drives. And then up here, your 5-inch wide stuff for like your CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, all that up here. And then that's the nice thing about these computers is they keep a lot of the interfaces the same. It's called ATX form factor. And what that means is where everything plugs in, your screw pattern, all that stuff. So ATX to ATX, year over year. Most of it should plug in and be fairly compliant now. This case would have a challenge if I wanted to go with one of them crazy liquid processor cooling supplies or something like that. I'm really hoping this big old fan thing I bought will work fine for what I do. But this is just showing like the setup in here and as I take it apart. Okay, digging into more of the archaeology of this old ASUS Maximus Hero board. Right there is something I just saw. This thing has 8 SATA ports. That's amazing. Like, that is hard to find. On these newer motherboards, they typically have 4. So if you have a lot of internal devices, it's nice to have it directly connected to the board. There's an alternate where you got these PCI slots, and they got like some SATAs coming off that. That's another alternate, but that's just something I thought I'd point out. And this is what this thing looks like, circa 2014 is basically when this board was the hot item. Okay, looking at the old ASUS Maximus Hero board, you can see it's a lot more simple than the ones today with not as much big stuff coming off of it. So found out I had an ASUS video card. So this is the old video card. You can see the cooling pipes right there. And it's 2 whatever the heck they call those, DVI-D connectors. Of course, you get adapters for it. There's a HDMI and then a display port. So the new one has like 3 display ports, and I did forget to get some adapters. I'll have to see what I need to get. That's funny. I had Corsair Vengeance RAM right there. So that's the old stuff. But still pretty nice. Instead of this push to start thing, I know some of the YouTubers were talking about that. But here's the whole board right there and the video card. So just thought I'd show what's going on there. Transferring the old motherboard over to the old anchor case. It looks the same on the inside, but you can see it's that tannish gray stuff that turns yellow over time, but still it's the same basic chassis, just a different color, no clear door on the side. But getting everything transferred over there right now. Here's the motherboard out of the static bag. This is the infamous button you press to release your, I guess the video card goes all the way up here. Your LGA 1700 slot, DIMM DDR5 RAM, your main PCI connection. Let's see what else we got here. That's all your normal power stuff, your SATAs. That air power connector. It has like pull-up stickers for all these decorative things that cover the stuff. Let's see, and it's quite a bit heavier than my old ASUS board. So there's everything in the back. Sound, there's the Wi-Fi, has a built-in modem if you want to use that. It has a built-in video card for like a lower-end graphics just to get it going. But yeah, that's all the parts. Very heavy duty. Has an M2 slot there. And it says M2 as well there, so I'll have to check those things out. But that's all these parts. Here's the M.2 card that plugs in. A little bit lower out to check out the instructions. I don't think there's any fan, but there's a massive heavy, this is aluminum heat sink right here. I think that's an aluminum heat sink, says this guy, so I don't know the priority of who's supposed to go where. I don't even have any of these cards right now, but I might use them. And I think that's why these are falling out of favor, these SATAs, just because everyone wants to go to the M2 for the faster speeds. But yeah, it's nice that it has both of them. Okay, going back to the motherboard section, there's this nice little cover for the LGA 1700. Put that to the side. This lifts up. There's a little over center mechanism that holds it down. That's what all the stuff looks like right there, the pin connections. And looking on the back, I'm seeing these four things. I think that's for the fan. So the next thing up is going to be this processor right here. On the Intel i9 processor, it is a 12900 KF i9. Pretty heavy. This is it right here. So the prices fluctuate all over the place. You got to check day by day, and you can kind of trend for when the price is low. I got this on Amazon. Originally, they were going to want to send it to me like mid-April or something like that, and I'm trying to, get this computer up and running, make sure everything's right. So anyway, I did a cancel order and then reordered it at a lower price and a quicker turnaround time. So something to watch out for, but pretty standard Intel one. This has multiple cores and hyper-threading and all their stuff. It's a 12th generation. So that's just showing everything right there. The processor is installed. A little bit of mistake proofing, but I put it in so the lettering, there's lettering on this if you get this right. So the lettering is going up. It's seated in there just fine, and this little over center guy went in fine. I didn't feel any pins binding or anything. I got this, we call it it has, I think it's CCHP, like ammonia cooling pipes in there. If I got that right, I might be mistaken on it, but it does have cooling pipes from underneath. Big old fan. This is what I got. I hope I don't foresee the need to really push this thing to limits. I'm doing more heavy duty just so it lasts a long time. I don't have to worry about it. Anyway, here is bracketry. And when I look at it, there's this big old black X in there. They even give you some thermal paste, so that's nice. Little connectors, but this black X I got my thumb on right there. That I think sits behind the motherboard, and I think you got to get this thing mounted before you put it in the case. So here is, this thing is gigantic. Look at all that cooling power. There's the cooling pipes right there. So there's that. And there's a giant old school 5-inch fan. They even have ones that light up. This one was like 29 bucks on Amazon with a lot of good reviews from a reputable manufacturer. So I didn't really want to, bling this up too much, but this had very good reviews, and I think it'll do good for what I'm trying to do here. Let's see here. I just want to go through this a little bit more. I did open this up earlier, so I'm going to look for if there's any instructions. None right there. So here's the instructions. Shows all the parts and pieces. There's that thing I was talking about earlier, the backer, I'm pretty sure. So what it's showing here is you take the sticker off, that sticker, on the goop, put the X on the back side, and it has these little lines for 1700 versus 1200. And you bolt all this stuff up. Anyway, yeah, little metal side brackets. And one takeaway I have on this is probably do the goop at the last second, because you don't want that just hanging around. There's even more steps here on the back side. So we install it. So this thing is sandwiched on the motherboard itself. So that is something, hopefully you can get some value out of this, just to understand how the interfaces work. I'm an engineer by trade, so that drives me freaking insane when, they don't have a clear understanding of interfaces and how things are supposed to mechanically connect. So the idea is all this bracketry and your thing here, it sandwiches on the ATX board itself. It does not have to go into the ATX case. So that was a question mark I had in my head, because I knew this was a big honking heavy, cooler, but it all gets sandwiched right there on the circuit board. So this is just showing how all the various little steps work, and of course there's a fan connection. I got this guy out of the bag, and there's this little step right here. So LGA 1700, which is what I got, is outward, and the 1200 is inward, and that's what these little guys right here, they'll click in or out. So we want these to be in the outer position for all of it. Out and out. Now, as far as I can tell, that thing's symmetric. So I think it can go on either way. Yeah. Okay, the next part of the fan install here. So this could be a frustration saving step. There's nothing really locking this thing into the back until it's bolted on. So I put 2 pieces of blue tape. And just to note that this particular motherboard I got does not have the protective back piece of plastic on it. I didn't see it as a separate piece in the boxing or anything like that, so maybe that's a feature they got rid of that I've seen other reviews. Here's the motherboard turned around, and you can see that these are all in that outer LGA 1700 slot right there. So hopefully that's all good and ready to go. I think put the tape on the other side. This is a step that they're showing doing out in the open before you put it in the case. I think that makes sense. Maybe do a measurement of just dry setting this thing on here. So I'll do a measurement of that. I think I can just leave it there for a second. And I'll go and just make sure this darn thing's gonna even fit in my case that I really want it to. So I think we can probably do 1/4 inch or so from the motherboard standoff. That is sitting at, that's a really hard number to read. Anyway, it's sitting right there. I'll hold it and I'll go to the computer case and look at that. Moment of truth, pre-measuring this thing. It came out as actually, when I was able to read it, a little under 7 inches. So you see right there, it's gonna be right at the limits. I think it will fit. Let's see here. Is I standing on something? Yeah, it should fit. So I got my little standoffs there. And just zooming in just for giggles. 2003, that's when this case was made. ATX form factor. So this case is 22 years old. Can't believe I had it that long, but I've done several builds with it. But I'll go to show you what, you know, consistent form factor and the industry agreeing on stuff can do. We'll check it out, see if everything fits correctly. Here's the next step in the process, is attaching these little arms. So you have a screw on each side. So let's see here, that's that step. The screws were in the bag with the contact paste, and the arms were in the other bag. So that's showing what that looks like. We got the little arms attached on the cooler. Let's show you the step right there. Let's see right here for the LGA 1700. Now these have, you know, the Phillips drive right there with a little spring. Threads are here, but there's no mistake proofing on these metal parts. So you can put it in backwards, goop it up, and try to slam it on. So watch out for that. Make sure you have all threads going away from the cooler, all Phillips drives on this side. Next step, I'm gonna put it, now granted the cover's in place, but I'm a fan of dry fit and stuff. Just before you do anything with goop. So, taking a look, and maybe I had that backwards, but this is why it's important to do all this dry fitting ahead of time. So I got it in there, got it in there. Just trying to, there's a little bit of flex on these. I'm trying not to move around too much. I think it'll all fit. So I got it on here and there. Fits on those two. You got a little bit of play with this stuff. But take your time and don't take the sticker off or goop it up until you are convinced that this thing is going to go together like you want it to. So once it has a goop on it, it becomes a real giant mess. It's like anti-seize. All right. other thing to mention beyond making sure it fits is this ASUS board has this large piece right here, and it like just barely makes contact with it. I think it'll work fine. I think it's aluminum heatsink, so yeah, that should work. But just watch out for that whenever you're building this stuff. It is sitting hard against there, but it's not like, you know, rocked up like that. So it does want to seat fairly well. It's a different kind of cooler fan than I've ever dealt with these kind of things. So that's a new one with me, but I just recommend take your time, lots of dry fitting, make sure you're getting what you think you're getting with this. All right, for the Legu. So the processor's in, it is locked, and I'm using the thermal paste supplied by Coolmaster, the people that made the fan. So I'll do it here. I think they're going to give you a lot of it. You don't want it to go in next to the, like down the sides though. And I don't know if I really like what I'm seeing with this, so I might try the other one that I bought. That one right. I got this let's see here, MX4 thermal paste. So the stuff that came with Coolmaster, it, I don't know, almost seems stale to me. I haven't done one of these builds in a while, but I'm gonna try a little dab of this. And I'm liking that better because just a little tiny dab in this corner because it wants to stick better. This other stuff was like sliding off, and I did not care for that at all. So I'll go clean up what's there and then apply this MX4. It's only like $6 or so, but with all the money involved, this is one of the cheapest things you got. But in my opinion, with thermal compounds, you want them nice and sticky. You don't want them just, you know, peel off like you saw it right there doing with the other compound. It's could have reached expiration date or something like that. I'm not sure, but don't want to risk it. Here I am with the MX4 thermal compound. I wiped up all the old stuff. Yeah, this isn't peeling off. I wiped up the old stuff best I can. This is acting more normal. So you want it to be like kind of like caulking. I'm just putting little rows right here. I wouldn't put too much on. Then we'll the satisfactory sticker peeling. I'll just put a thin amount on these just to make sure it makes contact. Of course, this process right here, once it's in there, you can't see it, so best to push away all distractions. Make sure you're doing this stuff correctly. So very small amount on both sides, a little more on the processor side. All right, here we go, moment of truth. Try to line it up. And if you look, I'm trying to line it up with these screw holes. That's the best guidance I can see. It kind of does just sit there. Let's see. If we zoom in, I didn't see any of it squish out, so anyway, try for this one. Some of this I may not be able to do holding the camera, so I'll try to get the screws going here. Screws are starting to go in, they're aligned. Best to start with this one in the back corner. If you have something like this ASUS motherboard with this huge thing sticking out on it. But yeah, you can wiggle these screws around and try to line it. You might need some better lighting. Let's try to zoom in on there. These are spring loaded. So I'm just trying to get a couple turns in and then I'll look at the instructions. Just don't want the darn thing to fall out. And we can lift it up by it. So there's instructions. And does show that these things can wiggle around quite a bit for the different mounting configurations. It does not say anything about, of course you wouldn't do torque on something like this, I'd say. But they're spring loaded, and there's not anything that's going to punch through on their side. It's just like a backer plate. So I guess I'll turn them until the little springs go to full compression, but not try to overdo it because I don't want to break anything. See, there's nothing about torque or any of that, but if you look at these, this is the other bracket, the other LGA style. There's a stop on here that it won't allow it to go any further. So you just seat it to that, kind of like the ATX screws. So here's the last one. Turn it a couple times. You can see I'm hitting resistance, and you just stop there. Anything on these computers, you do not want to, lug nut it down. It's all just kind of like plumbing fittings, just the right amount of force on there, like that, like no, giant wrench or anything. Okay, so there's that part. Now we got to hook on the fan. Now you have some options. The fan can go in the front, the back, whatever. On this particular one, I'm going to want it to pull back. I got to understand where this fan plugs in at. So I'll have to find that. And then also I got all this RAM that I'm going to put on there. So we'll take a look at that. We're on to the part where we're getting the little fan clips on there. I looked at it more carefully. I had them originally in the wrong spot, but if you really zoom in on this stuff, that hook sticks out a lot. I'm looking at it, and I'm pretty sure they have to go on that side of it. I also have the electrical cable powers the fan on the top, because I'm pretty sure fan connectors are over there, best I can tell. So I'm going to try to get this thing to sit in there somehow, and it's not too clear how it works. Using like magic, I guess, to hold it on. Fan is in. Kind of a hokey setup with these little springs, I think, but I'm gonna have to play around with it a little bit more. But yeah, it's tricky to get it all in there and secure. I'm not quite sure if I'm done with it or not, but before I get too far along, I wanted to try out the RAM. I think I got a solution here. These little wire clips that they got on these fans are kind of chintzy, but when the fan is on the RAM side and you guys stick a RAM in there, it's like the fan is like touching right against it, which I did not care for at all. This thing's kind of symmetric, so I ended up putting the fan on the other side near this. If the fan and this heat sink is touching that heat sink, I think that's okay. If I was directly touching a circuit board like that, probably not the best. So anyway, I got this thing on here. It is having to sit up a little bit higher, so that might be affecting how these guys play out. But it's all sitting like, parallel and everything. It's just the fan sitting up a little bit higher than what this is based on where I can get it over here. So you got the clips, and it's on securely now, but what I did that might be a little unorthodox is I used aviation safety wire, stainless steel wire, and I grabbed the little pull handles from one side to the other, and I pulled them together. If I were to use a zip tie, I'd worry about it like getting brittle over time with the heat coming off this thing. So I hope this will last. It is extra metal in the case, circuit board, yada, 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 but so is that. So, we're already in the party with that stuff. So anyway, I got that little safety wire on there. It's turning this way. The fan is going to blow air forward, so I might have to rotate fans around the other way inside my case so it can breathe from the back and blow out the front. As long as it can all flow in one direction, it's okay. They do make smaller little coolers that sit right in there, like a circular one. I went with this one. I re-looked at it, and it had 18,000 reviews, like really high reviews. These smaller circular ones, I can put a link in those as well. They didn't have as many reviews, even though they were like 4 whatever stars. So anyway, this is just showing on one of these, mega gaming motherboards with the cooler. how you could set up the fan. Try it on both sides, but I wouldn't advocate having this fan in contact, especially intermittent contact with your RAM. It'd probably mess it up. So that's that part. Getting into the RAM section, I went with Corsair Vengeance. This is DDR5. That's what this new ASUS motherboard uses, the Z690-E. So anyway, I got 2 sets of 32, and each stick is 16, a total of 64. So pulling the other case out, looks like this. And this is all supposed to be, you know, presentable. So you'll see the back side with like a serial number or whatever, and the front side with the logo, with a little nice pull sticky. And you'll put it in like so, and you gotta do it very carefully, but if you turn it the other way, you'll see the key slot is like way off by several keys. It would not even fit that way. So it's meant to go with the logo going this way. And I looked around at this motherboard a lot, and this metal piece does not come off. As far as I can tell, it's permanent. And these, this side of the DDR is fixed, and, or sorry, the RAM, DDR, whatever. And then this side over here is removable. So that's how you would bring it in. We can install this first one. Now they go in sets of 2 for this style, and just gotta, I ideally recommend 2 hands doing this, but I'm holding the camera. So take your time and you work. This way is probably easiest. Now ideally this is identical RAM, and it's sitting on top of a box too that came in. So we got that one in. We can peel a little fancy sticker off. Fancy. Yeah, they're really into the presentation with this stuff now. Of course, these guys that really push these things to the limit are really, there's a lot of money in this. You know, people make full-time livings just playing computer video games anymore. ASUS is one of the big players. So that's in, like so. And there's a space, so it's A1, B1, A2, B2. Pulling out the instructions right here shows it how it does it in sets. So ideally this is the exact same spec of RAM, but I just know from old school days, do it like so. To keep these separated, I think I'm gonna grab a Sharpie marker, and I'll put a little dot on, that way it'll set, you know, one set different from the other set. So this is the fancy RAM. This is like a LED bar just for bling bling, but I'm gonna put a little dot right there, because once you get them out, you could tally like whatever numbers are in the back, but they're supposed to be the same. So anyway, I'll put a little dot right there. You won't even notice it when the thing's together. And then for the other set, it won't have a dot, so I know which ones are the pairs for the A1, B1, and then A2, B2, set up like so. Don't really know if it'd make a difference, but this is the time to put in a little extra effort to think about things like that and hopefully avoid any problems. But again, it's very nice looking RAM, you know, cosmetically what it looks like presentation. This DDR5 is supposed to be a real, you know, next leap in technology for RAM. And it was compatible. According to the website, everything plugs in just fine. And you gotta be careful, because DDR5, when I first ordered something, didn't check into it as close. And they make DDR5 laptop RAM and DDR5 full PC RAM. And DDR means something with like the electronics, like it has nothing to do with the darn interface. So when you get the laptop DDR5, it's like this short little thing. It wouldn't even, you know, you might be able to stick it in there, but I would not want to fire it up. So again, I triple checked against the ASUS support page, and I can put a link in there where you can find it, or even show you on the website how you get there. But it's very good that they have a lot of online support for this. Like, you know, particularly like processors and RAM are very picky, whereas, you know, SATA drives, as long as it's the SATA interface, that's pretty good. But when you're building these computers, it's a mix of things that mean something to an electronics wizard, you know, chipset, yada, yada, yada. And then there's the guys putting it together. where the mechanical interface is what's really important. So DDR5 versus 4, the key is in a different location, which would prevent, proper installation. But then they throw that curveball of DDR5 laptop RAM versus DDR5 PC RAM. So if you don't have support with your motherboard and you're trying to get the RAM, just make sure you're not getting laptop RAM, because I got that little stick from Amazon. It's about, a little bit wider than this nickel-plated logo. So that's showing that part for the RAM, the first set. Okay, back to the motherboard. We're progressing the build. We have the processor in, the cooler in. Have some videos on these. RAM is in. And I just wanted to show off the M.2 slots. There's 3 on the board here. And we're again looking at the Z690-E Strix generator, or what do you call it, sub-brand. So you got your M.2 here, got one here and one there, and little hold down screws and all that stuff. So you can have 3 SSDs, pretty wild stuff, right on the board itself for transfer speeds way faster than just normal SATAs, even though my preference is SATAs just because they're not, you can pop them in and out and all that. But since this has so many of these things, I'll be tempted to, get one to try it out and maybe have key files, like CAD files or flight sim or whatever it could be that would need to load fast, like so. But my plan is to have the operating system, Windows 11, run through SATA, through a Kingston hard drive. So there's the build so far. Last part on the cooler fan. If we got the, again, it's being installed into an ASUS ROG Strix Z690-E. So going into instruction, yes, men do read instructions on this stuff, particularly like where the hell do I plug in the fan? And I figured it was on the top, but yeah, let's zoom right in. CPU fan, number 4. So it's just right slightly of where the LGA pad is. So we'll go spin this guy around, and it helps to build this stuff on the box, like so, that it came in. Comes with our cardboard box, or I'm doing this stuff inside the ATX chassis. But we got our cooler fan with our little polarity plugs. They go flashy black. Well, I guess there's a little white label right there. But if we zoom way the heck in on this gray guy, that was the position that it was in. And we'll get that plugged in. But yeah, this is the kind of stuff that'd be a total nightmare to do if it was inside the case. Hopefully I'm not making you seasick. There we go, satisfactory click. It did have polarity on it with that little clip. If you go remove this stuff, reminder, that might have to be pulled back with like an old flathead screwdriver or something. The rest of this stuff does not come out. 2 plugs right there, so I'll have to read about them for the power to the processor. But yeah, there's the fan installation. And again, I had to spin the fan around towards the back side of the case just because it was sandwiched right in here and is making contact with the RAM, and I did not care for that. So there's the setup. I think we got everything ready to go into the case, as far as I can see, for getting this motherboard mounted. There's the motherboard, the full setup, processor, RAM, cooler fan, everything's in there. It looks like it'll fit. Even the height of the cooler fan should fit. I flipped these fans around here so they'll pull in air from the backside, go through there, and then any other fans I'll flip around. But yeah, that's the setup right there. And then all the ATX hold down screw locations are the same as the previous Maximus board from 10 plus years ago. So we got one there, and there, and then basically those same locations on the bottom and on the top. So it's 9 things that hold it down. Next item up in this computer build is the ASUS GeForce RTX 3060 with 12 gigabytes of RAM, PCI Express at 4.0. Let's see here. Showing the back of it, you can see right here, this is really the main reason I bought it, is just multiple displays out, NVIDIA processors, dual fans. It's not ridiculously huge. The price was, for this kind of video card, I didn't think was too bad. Anyway, this is the whole box, very nicely packaged. So let's see here, an unboxing video. And I'll get that out of the box here. Got out of the box, had to cut the other end open and then push it through. Let's see here. So, like all the other ASUS stuff, nicely packaged. It's an anti-static bag. Put that to the side. And let's see what we got here. Thank you card. Not quite like a little information card. There's instructions. Yeah. All right, so that's what's in here. Okay, first impressions. Here's the back. It has, I think, a stainless steel end plate that you were talking about. It has protective film with little tabs right there. You can pull up. And then they have all these plugs over the various ports. This one does have the protective plate on the back, which is kind of nice. Some cooling pipes, kind of like my previous one. Kind of looks like just a modern version of the one I had before. This is all protected here with plastic, so they're also very concerned about the aesthetics, not fingerprinting it up. Let's see here, and it has one of these 8 pins, 4x2, for additional power from the what do you call it, power supply. So yeah, it seems kind of like just a modern version of the new one. And this has 3 display ports and 1 HDMI, I believe. So hopefully I'll support multiple monitors and put out pretty good graphics. I'm not trying to be too picky with this stuff, just something decent anymore with this, where we are with computer technology. I got the protective plastic off, so it's very bling blingy. Unfortunately, this will be facing down, so you'll see the name, the brand of GeForce and all that stuff. But all the fans point down, but sure is fancy looking stuff. If you have one of them aquarium clear glass cases, it'd show off more than what I got. Next item up, it's PCI connected multi, what do you call this thing? USB out. Just because I have several USB items that I run, like flight controller joysticks, special radio equipment. So there you can see it through there. It has 7 USB. I think they're all 3.0 version or whatever you call it. And it had good reviews on Amazon. There it is. Fashionable black tone, matches the rest of the computer case, so we'll see how this goes. Here's the what do we call it, the video card right there, all installed in the top. It has that button over there for release. It's all put in there and everything seems to fit fine. Next item up is this 7-port USB, and it will go right there below, or I guess, I don't know. Maybe we could put it on the bottom, I guess, since I have multiple. I have a total of 3 PCI slots in here. So we'll get that in there next. So that's installed. You can see it right there. Doesn't take up the full width, just the end. I put it on the bottom, gives me more room for these 2 M2 guys here. Of course, there's additional M2s that can go into that slot. Here we are at the power supply. It is very heavy, and it is basically just slightly powerful version, from what I can tell, of the one I had my previous build. Corsair, it's a HX1000i, and has the same modular plug, so you can plug in only what you need. ATX 3.1, I'm sure it'll fit fine. Looking over the box, again, is very heavy. Has a lot of information on the back. But yeah, we'll get that open. And of course, this has all the power cords with it too. Various types of power cords. The grand reveal. So power supply itself is in like a cardboard egg crate. We got all our cables in here. Safety and compliance information. So yeah, pull that thing out. Okay, here's the back that you'll see from the back of the computer. Normal on-off switch with normal computer plug. Big old fan. Feels like good build quality. Has various plugs in here. Things are all labeled. Got your SATAs, which are a 6-pin 3x2. And you got PCI CPUs here, which are a 2x4. And you got the big old ATX main guy right here. Looks like even like a little USB-C. Maybe that plugs in the motherboard. So yeah, you got a total of 6 internal SATAs, and of course they can daisy chain off of that. And then here we got just all your normal cords, so power, zip ties, and the typical Corsair power cords. They're all black and they are very nice looking. So we'll start getting this in. Got the power supply with all the key items hooked up, and it's kind of easier to do it outside of the box. It loads through that slot right there, comes back, and then you hook it up. Getting things hooked up in here, we got all the power reset switches right there. There is a graphic in the manual that shows you how to hook things up. On the previous Maximus hard drive, or what do you call it, motherboard, there was a standoff block that you could take out, plug in everything like right in front of you, but this one's like buried down in there, so that's kind of a minus in my book. It's a very low cost item to hook up all your switches and speakers and reset button, all that, you know, out in the open and plug it all in one shot. I think it's a way better way to go than this. So that's something that's, you know, irritating for something of this price point. I looked all throughout the box several times and could not find that little standoff block, all the little bags and everything. So not sure if they just don't do that anymore or what the story is, but I would see that as a thing I didn't really care for with what they did here. This is the first turn on of this thing. All the lights are running. I don't have a signal yet on my computer monitor. Looks like it's running through some stuff right there on the code. Those RAM sticks are pretty fancy, so is that background thing. Looks like the video card just got power to it. My God, I invented something that works. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's some stuff here. We got a screen, so I'll start reading through it carefully and go from there. I'm in the BIOS menu right now with the F1. First thing to note is it's keeping it cool, and it's at 4900 megahertz, so that's pretty good. Temperature's 31C. I'm gonna run a lot. I normally run a lot of this stuff auto on here with a lot of these selections. You can tweak it later if there's a need to do it, but I think the auto settings keep this thing safe is the big thing. Main, but yeah, it took like a minute or two, and I could tell it was booting up and everything. Looking at all the various things, it did detect the processor on there, of course, and the mouse works, you know, here in the BIOS. Bunch of auto settings. Let's see, advanced. So it's detecting that that's the, you know, i9 12900KF for the 12th gen for the processor, and hyper-threading is enabled. So looks like a bunch of stuff. Monitor. Just go through these, but yeah, that's the big message. It turned right up, and I'll just start tweaking around with this BIOS for a while, make sure it's all good before proceeding. Messed around with the boot settings and stuff, and it's selecting the hard drive to launch from. I gotta figure it out. Pretty bright lights in there. So, not doing anything weird yet, just trying to understand what it's trying to do with how I went about it. So, let's go back to Windows. Basically, I'm using my old C drive for this build. I'll upgrade from there. So, it's basically was running an old computer, now it's on this new one. Hopefully it'll all link up and everything will work. Windows loaded up, I put the CD in there and I'm installing a bunch of drivers from ASUS. Of course, opted out of Norton, but there's better services for that. And yeah, it looks like it's trucking along. Just need to get this video card set up right, because this resolution is horrible. But yeah, it's making its way.